Welcome to today's explainer. We are diving straight into something that, honestly, can feel like a total black box for a lot of business leaders, CTOs, and founders out there, and that is web application security. Look, we know the industry is just packed with technical jargon, right? But we're going to cut right through all that noise today. We're breaking down the actual ground-level realities of penetration testing into clear, actionable insights. Because at the end of the day, you need to make smart, confident, risk-based decisions to protect your business. Okay, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover the number one threat out there, the real difference between scanners and manual testing, what actually goes on inside a real pen test, the brutal cost of skipping this step, and finally, how to choose the right partner. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the number one threat. So whether you're running a rapidly scaling SaaS platform, a massive e-commerce store, or even just a critical internal portal, your web app is out there. It's exposed. It is literally your digital storefront. And trust me, threat actors are out there rattling the doorknobs every single day. Just look at this number. According to IBM's Cost of a Data Breach report, an absolutely staggering 70% of successful cyber attacks in 2023 directly exploited web applications. Let that sink in for a second. 70%. This isn't just some fringe issue. This is the main event. And on top of that, research from Positive Technologies found that 86% of tested apps have at least one exploitable vulnerability. If your business relies on a web-facing app, penetration testing isn't a nice-to-have. It's an absolute necessity. I actually really love this analogy from our source material. Cutting corners here is like buying cheap brakes for a Ferrari. I mean, think about it. You've poured millions of dollars, right, and countless hours into building this incredible product, acquiring customers, earning their trust, trying to protect that multi-million-dollar high-performance asset with some cheap, basic security scan. It's frankly absurd. You need stopping power that actually matches the speed of your engine. Moving right along to Section 2, scanners versus manual testing. This brings us to a really crucial concept, what I like to call the iceberg of cybersecurity. What you see on the surface when you use automated tools is just a tiny, tiny fraction of the big picture. Cheap automated scanners, which usually run around $500, basically just check boxes. They'll find known basic vulnerabilities, sure. But beneath the surface, that's where professional manual tests come in. Yes, they cost $10,000 or more, but these professionals are simulating real sophisticated attackers. They test advanced logic. They figure out how a hacker might take, say, 3 minor, seemingly harmless flaws and chain them together to completely compromise your entire database. And to really understand why manual testing is so crucial, we need to talk about business logic flaws. Let's pull away from the tech jargon for a second and talk business reality. You see, a vulnerability isn't always just a broken line of code. Sometimes it's a perfectly functioning workflow that's being abused. An automated scanner, it has absolutely no idea how your specific business operates. It cannot tell if a clever attacker is tricking your e-commerce cart into spinning out a 100% discount by messing with the coupon field. To a scanner, that's just a web form working exactly as designed. But to a manual tester, that is a massive loophole. Let's look under the hood in Section 3, inside a real pen test. A serious pen test isn't just someone in a hoodie hacking away furiously at a keyboard. It's actually a highly structured 6-step methodology. First up is reconnaissance. That's gathering intelligence on your whole digital footprint. Second, they map out your application's architecture. Step 3 is automated scanning, just to clear out the obvious, low-hanging fruit. Then we hit Step 4, which is the most critical, manual testing. This leads directly into Step 5, which is controlled exploitation, seeing exactly how far an attacker could get. And finally, Step 6, reporting. And we're talking actionable, developer-friendly guidance here, not just a massive PDF dumping a list of generic problems on your desk. Now, here is the real differentiator. These specific areas, this is exactly where manual testers shine and where automated tools just completely drop the ball. Sure, a scanner might check if a login page exists, but a human tester, they're going to try to actively bypass your two-factor authentication. They'll test authorization to see if maybe tweaking a user ID in the URL suddenly lets them view a completely different customer's private data. This is exactly where real-world attackers are spending their time, so it's where your testers need to spend theirs. Which brings us to Section 4, the cost of skipping. So, what actually happens if you decide to treat security as an afterthought? Well, I know executives love a clear compliance matrix, so here you go. If you are trying to close enterprise clients, you are going to be staring down some brutal security questionnaires. Frameworks like PCI DSS, SOC 2, HIPAA, GDPR, They all practically mandate rigorous testing. If you can't produce a recent, professional pen test report, you're going to lose major RFPs right out of the gate, you'll fail audits, and you'll have to watch lucrative deals walk right out the door and over to competitors who actually took security seriously. Let's ground those compliance risks in some harsh reality. Back in 2022, a mid-sized healthcare SaaS company was hit with $1.4 million in HIPAA fines. And here's the kicker. This wasn't some unavoidable freak act of nature. It was an unpatched vulnerability that snowballed into a massive data leak. That is the very real cost of delaying your testing until after an incident happens. Standing there and saying, well, we didn't know we were exposed, is absolutely not a valid legal defense. And this brilliantly illustrates the return on investment. According to IBM, the average cost of a web application breach is $4.35 million. Now compare that to the cost of a really good, rigorous manual pen test, which typically runs anywhere from $7,000 to $20,000. When you do the math on that, a pen test is essentially a 0.5% insurance premium to avoid a completely bankrupting event. Frankly, it is one of the best investments you can possibly make for the long-term survival of your company.
All right, final section. Section 5, choosing the right partner.
So, how do you make sure you're getting a real manual test and not just some cheap scans slapped with a fancy label? Well, here's a breakdown of what you're actually paying for in this industry. Down at the bottom, you have your $500 automated scans. As you move up, you hit full manual web app pen tests, which generally start around $7,000 and go up from there for comprehensive engagements. Quick pro tip for you. When you're reviewing those higher tier quotes, always ask if remediation support is included. You want to make sure they're actually going to spend time helping your developers fix the problems, and ideally that they'll include at least one round of retesting in that exact same price. You also need to be hyper vigilant for these vendor red flags. If a company is trying to sell you an automated scan and calling it a pen test, just walk away immediately. Seriously. Also, if a vendor doesn't insist on having a scoping call or a really deep conversation about how your specific business logic works, they are not the professionals you're looking for. No post-test support is another massive red flag. If they just slap their logo on a PDF and vanish into the night, that's not a partnership. Demand proof, ask for redacted sample reports, and absolutely ensure that whatever they deliver is going to be actionable for your engineering team.
I want to wrap up our explainer today with one final, kind of provocative thought. Is your front door locked? Think about it. You have invested so heavily in your product, and more importantly, in your customers' trust. Your web application is literally the digital front door to all of that value. If it's left vulnerable, the whole shebang is at risk. So the real question you should be asking isn't whether you can afford a professional penetration test. The real question is, can you afford not to test? Lock your front door properly and protect the business you've worked so hard to build.